Thank you very much indeed, Nikki. Time then for the penultimate round of Season 12 to get underway here in Tokyo. We're ready for qualifying as the drivers are about to head out onto the track. First of all, two groups, of course, Group A and Group B. Top four from each of them will go through into the dual stages, quarters, semis, and then the final. Here's the track, 2.5 kilometres, 18 turns in total, running in an anti-clockwise direction. The first sector, quite tight and technical, down into turn 1. Turn 4, attack mode activated there in the race. Drivers will get an extra 50 kilowatts of power and all-wheel drive. Then the track finally begins to open up. We go through the fast sweeper of turn 9. Incident zone aplenty there. We saw Edo Mortara in the wall in free practice 1 earlier on this morning. Turns 10 and 11, threading the eye of a needle through that chicane, down into turn 15, and then crucially turn 16 as well. The third but last corner on the track. We've seen so many incidents there this weekend. Will we see more coming into qualifying?
There's your shot. Lovely, they're with us.
Well, they're ready to go for qualifying here under the cloud cover of a very hot and humid Tokyo E-Prix. It's going to be an interesting one, this, because we're expecting the race to have a sprinkling of water joining us later on this evening. It happened just before free practice 1 yesterday. We had a drying track, which ultimately then ended up mostly drying, but for the first corner. However, coming into the race later on this afternoon, and indeed into tonight, we are expecting the weather to hit once again, Billy.
Well, having just been out there, I think there's a chance it could come a bit earlier than expected, because it does feel like it's turning out there condition-wise already.
Yeah, it's gone very, very humid indeed. Let's have a closer look then at the 10 drivers who will be out on track in Group A. I say 10, I mean 9, because Felipe Dragovic will not be taking part in this session. He was in the wall in a big way. They've had to replace the tub on that Andretti, so no running here for Felipe Dragovic. We'll wait and see whether they can get that car repaired, hopefully in time for the E-Prix later on today. But you've got some big names in there: Pascal Verlaine, Oliver Rowland, Jake Dennis, as well as Nico Müller, Nick Cassidy, Joel Eriksson, Lucas de Grassi, Taylor Barnard and Norman Nato are your 9 drivers who will go out onto the track. As always, of course, the top 4 will move forwards from the group stages into the duels. Katie, how do you see this one going down? Because if we look at where we were in free practice 2 this morning, we had 4 Porsche powertrains inside the top 5. Do you think we can read anything into that in these group stages?
I think it's a great indication that they're strong here. I'm just listening into a bit of team radio, and they're saying that some areas of the track are actually 12 degrees cooler than they were in free practice, so that's hinting to a storm coming. But actually Verline's engineer is saying that he doesn't think the rain will come for this first session, so maybe there's an advantage to being in the first group here if it's imminent. And as Billy said, when we were outside it, you can feel the wind pick up. It definitely feels like it is going to come in, so weather could be an important factor in qualifying today.
Yeah, it certainly can be, and we saw a few different strategies in terms of free practice 2 of how the drivers were getting their tyres into the window, the amount of bits that were being used. Google Gemini was just there saying that 3 build laps is what we can expect, and to be fair, because the temperatures have dropped, I wouldn't be surprised, because 2 seemed to be the preference earlier, so they might just be taking a little bit extra precaution.
Tricky weekend, of course, for Citroën.
The plan is hot, double prep, push, double cool, push, hot, double prep, push, double cool, push.
So the plan there for Nick Cassidy, doing a couple of double prep laps and then into a push lap, doing 2 cool down laps and then into some more push laps. As I was saying, a tricky weekend to put it mildly for the Citroën team. We mentioned at the start of the broadcast that Gav just joined us. Their team principal, Cyril Blaze, sadly passed away last week, and the team racing on in honour and in his memory, and they would love to get a really strong result here in Tokyo this weekend with Nick Cassidy and with Jean-Eric Vergne. Cassidy, of course, out in Group A at the moment on track, and we'll wait and see what he's going to be able to do in that Stellantis powered machine as he makes his way down through into turn 16 and 17. This is the scene inside the Andretti garage. At the moment you can see a new tub on the right hand side of the garage for Felipe Dragovic. A lot of repairs ongoing there. If you missed the crash earlier on this morning, he was going through turn 16, the fast right hander, big crash into the wall with the rear right, then the front right rather, hit it straight away, and then he tobogganed over to the other wall on the other side of the circuit. Let's have another look at it and just guide you through exactly what happened, because it was a high energy crash.
Yeah, this angle we're just going to see him effectively hit the wall. He lost the car actually quite early on in the apex. He had a bit of a distraction from Eduardo Mortara, and this will be a much clearer indication of that as he comes through the exit of 15. Then we go into 16. It's so high speed, there's a crown in the road. He's got that car on the inside that's just maybe to turn in a fraction too late, lost the rear, and in a high speed narrow circuit like this, in that particular part of the circuit, there was no coming back from that.
Yeah, wishbone through the front of the tub as well, we believe, so that's what has caused that tub to necessitate being replaced. His teammate Jake Dennis out on track. You will notice the Andretti looking a little bit different here this weekend as well. They partnered up with Liberty Walk, which is a fashion and automotive brand. If you're familiar with the Nissan Skyline and various other cars, you, I'm sure, will know all about Liberty Walk. It is one of the most striking looking liveries we've got out on the track. Not the only one as well, because the Cupra Kiros are running a slightly updated livery with some Sakura on the side of their cars, and crucially the Nissans as well. Oliver Rowland will get an eye on him later on in the session. You'll see a grey livery on their car to promote the new Nissan Nismo Leaf, which is launching over here in Japan in the very near future. There indeed, right on cue, is Norman Nato, Oliver Rowland's teammate, as he's just behind Nico Müller, and you can see that Nissan looking particularly different out there on track. And I have to say, I'm loving the look of it, because as I mentioned in Free Practice 1 yesterday, Billy, it's like a testing-esque livery for me, being sort of a matte black kind of stealthy look.
Yeah, it does look really neat. I think under the lights as well, especially, it's going to really stand out. So yeah, it's a big weekend for Nissan, for Oliver Rowland. You know, obviously a home race for Nissan as a team. Oliver Rowland's up there in the championship, currently third in the standings right now, and he's at a circuit where he went really well here last year. He was second in the first race we had here in Tokyo last year, and then he won the second race. So it was a big swing in momentum for him in terms of the championship. He'll be hoping for the same this weekend.
Yeah, so about halfway through this session already. No real representative lap times coming in too much at the moment. In the 1:14s, we're expecting times to tumble quite a bit towards the end of the session. Just looking here at Taylor Barnard on a flyer as he comes through in towards the third and final sector. Here in Tokyo, the momentum is very much with Nissan. 3 races we've had at this circuit, 3 pole positions for Oliver Rowland and for that Nissan team. Life, though, has not been easy for the current world champion so far this weekend. He was complaining about the balance of the car in FP2 this morning, ended up only 17th, and that was backed up by a difficult performance yesterday as well.
Yeah, to be fair to him, he didn't use attack mode in this morning's session, so he only ran in 300 kilowatts, and that time he put down was a 1:14.4. He's at a 1 minute 14.7 so far. So from where he was this morning, he's lost a few temps, and it sounded like this morning he was still having issues. So I'd expect the lap times to come down quite a chunk from where they're at right now.
It's your most recent race winner of Lucas Di Carati, just taking the tyres off that car, sticking a new set of boots on, whether they're just siding the tyres, changing over. Let's have a look here. Meanwhile, Oliver Rowland coming through into 16.
I hit the wall at the last corner. And 16 on the inside.
So we've seen drivers clipping the wall on the outside. I think that's the first time we've had someone get the wall on the inside of that turn.
I think what we were talking about earlier with this being a street circuit, there's a crown in the road as you enter turn 16. So what that means for people back at home is that the middle of the road is the highest point, and then it falls away each side of that. So what you've got is that urgency to get the car into the apex of the corner, because if you miss the crown of the road, then the rear breaks away from you at the apex, and you end up in the outside wall, which is what we've seen cause some really significant damage to this man's teammate Felipe Drugovich earlier on today. So it feels like you have that urgency as a driver to get the car into the apex to make sure we don't miss it. But on that case, he obviously went in a bit too early and clipped the wall. So maybe a lack of concentration there. We've got high temperatures. It's tough for the drivers around there.
Anyone in particular an outlier that you're keeping an eye on in this session so far, Katie? Just over 4 minutes, or under 4 minutes now remaining.
Oh, just watching the timing screen now. I was watching Jake Dennis go purple sectors all the way across down in the 1:13.7. So I think that's quite a respectable timing at the 300 kilowatts. We've seen also a lot of the drivers in the pits at the minute changing their tyre strategy, fresh out, or maybe deciding them over. So you're going to see the cars coming back up the track and trying to put in some fast laps in the last couple of qualifying.
Long lap time there for Joel Eriksson as well. That's good news for the Envision driver. We understand that he's likely to remain with that team going into the Gen 4 era. Not surprised at all. He's had some really good performances, increasingly so over the latter half of this season, especially last time out in Shanghai when he was nailed on for a victory. Eventually ended up on the podium after the mistimed full course yellow from his perspective.
I think the last 2 lap times that we've seen come in, which is Nico Müller and Pascal Wehrlein, both Porsche power cars, I think that just shows how strong that Jake Dennis lap time is.
Hey, what the f*** happened with these tire temps?
Not so happy at Nissan by the sounds of things then. Oliver Rowland definitely complaining, and he's 3 temps slower than he was this morning, where he already had his complaints, so it feels like an uphill mountain already for him this weekend.
Sam Bird, their reserve driver, as of course part of that team, and crucial his experience I'm sure will be in this session as we look here at Oliver Rowland then. So he's building himself up for another lap then here in this session. Is this going to be a flyer, as he just sort of again waiting for that right point to go? 2 minutes left on the clock, and I wonder if it's going to be a case of last driver across the line. So he's just on another build lap then here, isn't he, Oliver Rowland? And I think just trying to get those tyres in the right operating window. We've had so much talk about that this season in particular, Katie, where drivers have been going out, doing a lap, and then because they're not quite where they need to be, they're either too hot, too cold, just the lap time falls away.
The margins are just so tight, and it's not just this season. You know, we've seen drivers last year as well be, you know, getting through into the duels day on a double header, and then the next day nowhere near it. When you speak to them, they're always, the common theme is getting the tyres in the window, and a lot can change, and obviously with temperatures and weather. But it's no different here this weekend. It seems to be that he needs to get another build lap in to get some more heat into the tyre so that it's ready. Perhaps he came out of the pits with the, you know, not the right pressure that he needed to be able to go and do one build.
Roger Griffiths just watching on inside the Andretti garage at the moment, just keeping an eye on his one and only driver that's out in this session. Still, of course, the rebuild work ongoing frantically on one side of the garage there for Felipe Drugovich. As we look at Sylvain Filippi to his right-hand side, Zach O'Sullivan, their reserve driver for this season. Zach has been racing over in Super Formula this year. Speaking to him a couple of weeks ago in China, and he would love to get onto the grid in Formula E in the not too distant future, but just in case whether a seat or an opportunity is going to open up for the young Briton. But now it's all action and all eyes on the racetrack to see whether anybody's going to make any improvements in the final minutes of this session, because these drivers are now on their last flying laps.
Pascal Wehrlein's improved in the first sector. It's not the fastest we've seen, but it's definitely an improvement. So it looks like a strong start to lap. Can he get things stopped into 10-11? Whoa, there was a moment there. He so nearly clipped the apex of the wall there at 11. That was a big moment there, Tom.
Oh, Oliver Rowland's had a big moment there as well. He's a big snap of oversteer. I wonder if he might have clipped the barrier. We just saw it on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, but this lap has completely gone away for Oliver Rowland, and he's down in P6, so he is not going to make it through into the dual stages of qualifying, or indeed into that fight for pole position for the very first time here in Tokyo. As we look at Wehrlein getting caught up behind Taylor Barnard, bit of traffic going through to those final couple of corners. That is something to especially keep an eye on as we head forwards into Group B as well, because it's so tight and it really does bottleneck up. Wehrlein does make an improvement though, comes over the line in P3 with 14 seconds remaining on the clock. What about Nico Müller though? He's at personal best in Sector 2, sliding his way through turn 16. Now we're starting to see these cars moving around a little bit more in 300 kilowatts in two-wheel drive as they're trying to extract the lap time. Right, checker flag is now out. Müller's going to be the first driver to take it. Goes over the line, stays P2, doesn't make any improvements or indentations on Jake Dennis's top of the pile, but Oliver Rowland is going to come and take the checkered flag, and as I said, he will be out of qualifying, and a sullen face there on one side of the Nissan garage, but Norman Nato has just knocked out Nick Cassidy and improved up to P4.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this could get worse for Oliver Rowland right now. He's currently 7th in the group, but we've got De Grassi, who's on a personal best lap time, and Taylor Barnard has got faster in both the first two sectors than he has previously done. So Oliver Rowland could be looking at a really, really tough starting position for the race later on right now.
De Grassi then, most recent race winner in Formula E, over the line, stays P9, does a personal best time, but it's not enough to promote anybody as Wehrlein goes up into 4th place. Then Cassidy improving though, that's the big one. So Cassidy makes an improvement at the end of that session, up into P3. Good news for him, good news for the Citroën team, but Barnard goes up to 4th place and knocks out the championship leader. Pascal Wehrlein is now out of qualifying, to the shock and surprise of the Porsche team. Norman Nato also failing to make the cut, and well, that paints a picture of 1,000 words for the team principal of Nissan, for Tommaso Volpe. Both of their drivers, both Nissans out on home soil here in Tokyo.
Tight margins out there, just over, I think, 0.4 of a second cover the top 7 there, so it got tight towards the end.
Smile about there for the young Briton. Wehrlein, though, as we know, misses out as well as the other drivers. Crucially, this man here, Oliver Rowland, and his teammate Norman Nato, both failing to make the cut. They'll be bitterly disappointed as a result of that one, and they will be hoping for a minor miracle going into the race.
10 to a full-page graphic. 9, 8, 7.
For the fans watching on in the grandstands,
4, 3, 2, 1.
And the fans watching on the grandstands then, as we get ready for Group B to get underway then. So Mitch Evans is going to be out in this one. Likewise, Antonio Felix da Costa. Then you've got Eduardo Mortara and Nick De Vries, the 2 Mahindras. Sebastian Buemi in there, Pepe Marti, Dan Tickson, the 2 Cooper Kiros. So a bit of a Noah's Ark formation in this one, with sort of 2x2 from the different drivers and different teams. And I wonder if they might try and work together, send them out in sort of flying formation, and maybe try and get themselves in the same track position at a similar time.
Yeah, you could see it as sometimes an advantage to have split drivers in each session, because you can learn something for the first to put into the second. But I'm sure the teams who have been listening to the different tyre strategies on push and pull laps and build laps as well from the previous session from the other team's radios to try and figure out the best way to go about this. But yeah, actually James just made a really good point that this is huge for Jake Dennis's championship campaign here, because he is still in the fight mathematically. We're looking at the top 3, but there is still 6 drivers that are in with a chance this weekend. So this will be huge for him going in towards London if he can try and convert that into a good result today.
So if we look at the drivers that were pretty quick in FP2 this morning, you've got the likes of Mitch Evans, who was up inside the top 10. He was 6th fastest. Gunther was up there as well. Who else are we looking at here in this one? De Costa inside the top 10. Marty was just outside of it. So I'm keen to see how this one's going to go. And we saw, again, as always, very, very fine margins, less than a tenth of a second separating the drivers that made it through versus those who did not. And are we going to see a very similar set of circumstances here for Group B? Drivers now out on track. And what we saw in Group A, of course, were drivers going out and they were doing a couple of build laps, then into their sort of first push lap, then a few more cool laps, and then into the build laps once again. So let's see whether that is going to be the status quo once more. But a second successive dual appearance for this man here then, of Taylor Barnard, front row of the grid for the Britain last time out in Shanghai. Let's see whether he can convert it to another strong result here in Tokyo. How do you see this one going down, Billy? Do you think much of the same in terms of the run plan? Is there anybody in particular that you've got your eye on?
Yeah, I think for me it's the run plan. They'd have learnt a lot from that first group, so I don't think there'll be too much change in terms of what the strategy that works for the guys that have made it through into the dual stages of the qualifying. I think drivers to watch out for. I think you look at Mortara, he's been fastest in both free practice sessions, even though he didn't manage to hit the wall.
Yeah,
Making sure
so
the cars
double cool, still the plan. Yeah, double build, double cool.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're seeing from Group A, so nothing's changed there. Dan Tickton, again, another driver that's sort of gone under the radar this weekend. He was second actually in FP2, so we've seen one lap speed from him across the season. We know that Dan can deliver in those moments. This is a circuit that he's done one at before. He was on the podium last year here in the first race, so he'll be hoping to continue that momentum. And also he needs a strong result, because the last few race results have really not been strong from him, and his teammate has been delivering good results for the hero. So I think Dan will have the bit between his team.
Yeah, in terms of the qualifying head-to-head between Martin and Tickton, Tickton is 10-3 in his favour against Pepe Martin. So again, the momentum very much with it in terms of qualifying. But as you say, once the checkered flag has fallen in the E-Prix, often those results have been reversed.
Yeah, and Dan knows this business. He knows that the race results are what count. Like, pole positions are nice, but the team care about winning championships at the end of the day, and that's where you need to be strong across a race.
Yeah. Evans then on his first flying lap. You can see him harrying the car over the rise of turn 2, through the drop into turn 3. This is turn 4, where we saw Oliver Rowland making a real pig's ear of it on his final flying lap. Got it sideways through there, and then into 5 and 6. He was sideways further still, almost at a half spin going through there. So tight and technical with this first section. You can also see the different surface changes as well. We were alluding to this in free practice earlier on this morning. It is a street circuit, this one, as you can see by the lines indicating that on the track. That is so close for Mitch Evans. Just as a snap of oversteer on the exit of turn 9. Gathered it all up okay, but it's so easy to make a mistake. It actually wouldn't be the first time Evans hit the ball there. He did it back in the first race in season 10, if you remember, to that one. But
yeah, and in qualifying last year, 16, which has been a big factor this weekend. He ended up on the ball there, and that put him out for the race. So it's a lot has happened with Mitch in this circuit. He's not afraid to take risks, it's fair to say, but also he's fighting for a championship. So he knows that getting through into the dual stages, considering his rivals have not made it through, would be a massive result.
Evans then out of the final corner, over the timing line for the former championship leader, 1:14 flat. That's not too bad as a banker lap time, but we'll be expecting those to come down into the 1:13 region before the end of this session. Still half the session to go, plenty of time left for these improvements to come in.
Yeah, just out of interest, the Group A, the time that got you through into the dual stages was a 1:13.8. So in terms of the cut-off time for the top 4, that's where it was in the first stage of qualifying.
Got a lot of drivers and teams here that have got 2 cars out of this session. You've got 2 Jags, 2 Cooper Heroes, 2 Mahindras here, Katie. Help or a hindrance, do you think? I mean, yes, you've got the reference point, but if you're a team like, let's say, Neos Penske, for example, or Citroën, obviously you had your car out in Group A a couple of minutes ago. Does that give you a bit more data that's fresh, a bit more of a reference point?
I think it definitely does, and I know that they're sharing a lot. They're obviously all thinking about the team's championship, so it's not every man from South out there. Obviously, when they're on track and things are happening quickly, they each have their different areas that are working as their separate run plans. But between the sessions, I think there is definitely a lot that you can learn from driver feedback between the drivers as well as from the data as well.
Here comes Mortara riding, or seeing the shots of him as he enters 16. This was a man who managed to flip the wall earlier on qualifying, leaving quite a lot of margin, it looks like there. He's been quick in the first couple of sectors, not the fastest overall that we've seen, but I think it could be a strong lap potentially in the 1:13s. Yeah, just snuck into 1:13s.
Yeah, nice lap time there for Evan Mortara, backed up by his teammate Nick de Vries, going just 800ths of a second slower than him. So good to see Mahindra back on form and good pace from them, because it was a shocker of a weekend in Shanghai a fortnight ago. Nothing really to write home about for them in terms of their qualifying results. The Fred Bertrand there, obviously disappointed because the team lost out the third in the championship with Andretti, having had a much stronger run over the 2 weekends in China in particular. Gunther's just split between Mahindras. He's gone up into second fastest, maybe just bookending the fact that the pace for the Stellantis power cars now with Joran Byrne going up to the top of the pile is a bit more there this weekend. They could be ones to watch come the end of this session. Dan Tinkton, street circuit specialist, out of the final corner. What's this going to do for the British driver? It's going to send him up to second fastest. Just loses a bit of time there in that final sector, but nonetheless a good strong lap time for the Briton.
I think what's worth noting straight off the bat here is the top 5, just over a tenth of a second between the top 5. So we did see that in the first Group A there was some tight time margins between them all, as we see Da Costa. That's down into 10-11, the chicane. He's had to bail out there. That is a part of the circuit. We touched on this in practice, that because of the runoff there, you can push the braking zone there. You can really try and find the laps in there, because you're not hitting a wall if you make a mistake.
So that's Antonio Felix Da Costa just going off. Here's his teammate Mitch Evans, and I think he might have took the wall actually on the outside of 9. He did. So we saw him have that snap of oversteer, and he just taps the rear left through that. I don't think it was enough to cause any drama for him in terms of damage to the car. Let's have a look. It was tight, wasn't it? It was really, really tight. And just that snap of oversteer there just kissed it on the outside.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of maybe not causing damage though, because it didn't immediately look like the car was crabbing or anything like that down that straight into 10 and 11. So I think he's got away with it.
So Da Costa now on the move here, Katie.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like he's gone straight in for another push lap here. He's currently 2 tenths up on everyone's fastest time so far.
And importantly, the fastest middle sector, which is where he just made a mistake in the braking zone down at 10 and 11.
Oh,
so
that's a brilliant time.
Yes,
1:13.6.
that is a great lap time, and the fastest part of the lap for him was the middle sector. That's where he made the mistake on the previous lap. So I just think that shows that it's an area where you can get away with
copy.
pushing.
You keep pushing? No, of course not. Okay, let's get the tyres ready and we push next lap. We will need a quick call afterwards.
Well, concise communication is important between driver and engineer, and pretty blunt and to the point there for Mitch Evans. No chance of pushing on. He's currently 7th fastest. He's only a tenth of a second away from making the cut at the moment. But look, you've got 2 drivers, De Vries and Gunther, who are even closer than that still currently. The cut-off between making it and not is 2 100ths of a second.
Yeah, it's super tight out there. I do expect some improvements in lap times, considering what we saw in Group A.
Just coming up on the timing screen here, Verne and Maloney under investigation after the session for some impeding down at turn 3. So there might be a bit of a twist in the tail here between those 2 drivers. We haven't seen it at the moment, but we'll wait and see whether there is some more news to come. You can see confirmation there from race control on your screen at the moment, as Maloney's just getting caught up behind the Citroen here as well. So that might be a further bit of drama to come between those 2. That's Pokemon down there. Are you familiar with your Pokemon?
I'm not, Tom.
No, I think that might be a Charizard. I've absolutely no idea.
Don't pretend like you don't know what it is.
It's been a long, long time since I've been on the Pokemon. Right, anyway, back to the matter in hand. Away from that, let's see what Edoardo Mortara can do then. 4th fastest for him at the moment. On his final flying lap then in this session, as the timer counts down, just over 30 seconds now remaining. De Vries also on a bit of a fly here as well. De Vries needs it because currently he is out of qualifying. Let's see what the first sector time looks like, because we saw this at the end of the last session though, didn't we, where drivers looked okay in the first part of the lap, but there just wasn't the life left in the tyres to improve as they went round through sector 2 and sector 3.
Yeah, it's not a personal best for Edoardo Mortara, but it's within a few hundredths, so this lap is still he's more than capable of improving on this lap time, and it's such tight margins out there at the minute. But Edoardo Mortara, there's no doubt about it, in 350 kilowatt with attack mode, that car is on rails this week and he's been fastest in both practice sessions. He just needs to get the opportunity to use that by getting through the group stages. This is where it counts. He's green in the middle sector. It is an improvement. Doesn't look like it's going to really challenge the top of the qualifying order, but it might just be a slight improvement, maybe taking him up to third.
Yeah, personal best sector times coming in, as you say, but is it going to be enough for anyone to jump up the order? Mortara's going to come over the line and he'll cement his place in the duels with second place then. So that pushes Dan Ticktum onto the bubble. De Vries can't, though, make an improvement. He'll be out of qualifying in the sister Mahindra then. Zane Maloney on a personal best lap time. I don't think it's going to be anything to trouble the top four as it stands for now. This will be a lap time that I think may move him a bit closer to the rest of the drivers in front, but yeah, ultimately it's going to be bottom of the class for the Barbadian driver. Can Ticktum do anything? He can make an improvement in the final section to go into third place, pushes Verne onto the bubble. Verne then subsequently improves and the roles are reversed. Gunther make an improvement at the end of this session as well. Marty over the line, P8 for him, nothing really to write home about, and De Costa's abandoned that final lap there as well, so he's quite happy with where things sit. Sebastian Buemi, 7th fastest for him, no improvement into the duels. He's up the order, and I think, unless Evans can do anything, which he can't, he's half a second or so away. So the man that's second in the championship is also out of qualifying in Group B as well.
Well, just listening to his radio, he's complaining that he's got no grip. And yeah, going into that, he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make that final lap, and then going into that, I mean,
I've got no grip, man. We up on the tyres here.
Mitch Evans more frustrated than a bull in the soft play area, unfortunately having not made the cut from Group B qualifying. 8th quickest for the man who's second in the Drivers' Championship here. No further into the duels for the Jaguar driver. So your top four that will progress forward include Mitch Evans' teammate Antonio da Costa, Eduardo Mortara back up there again for the Mahindra team. Both Citroens through. Cassidy from Group A, Verne from Group B, which is great news for them. And Dan Ticktum as well, P4 for the Street Circuit Specialist. It'll be an interesting one, this, going into qualifying, into the dual stages on Katie, because there's some big names that have missed out.
Well, crucially, the top three in the Drivers' Championship aren't in the duels, and this is a track where qualifying is really important. I mean, you look, this is great for Jake Dennis, this is great for Antonio Felix Costa, and this is great for Mortara. Drivers that we thought coming into this weekend perhaps wouldn't be staying in the fight, might just be bringing it back now. Yeah,
top three, as you say, not making it through, but 3 points, of course, on offer for pole position here this afternoon as well. There is Antonio Felix Costa. Believe it or not, he's yet to take a pole position in the Gen 3 era. His last pole was back in Seoul in 2022, the last ever Gen 2 race, and he'd love to be able to get that monkey off his back here this afternoon. Reminder of your Drivers' Championship going into this one. Pascal Wehrlein leading Mitch Evans by 9 points. Roland there starting to tail off a little bit in third place, not helped by a poor performance in qualifying this afternoon as he failed to make it through from Group A. But let's get confirmation of Group B then. Da Costa does enough to get forwards into the dual stages and into the quarterfinals. He'll be joined by Eduardo Mortara, Jean-Eric Verne and Dan Ticktum. We lose Maximilian Gunther, former race winner here a few years ago. Nick De Vries also not making the cut. Buemi, Evans, Pepe Marti and Zane Maloney are the rest of the drivers who will go no further than the group stages here. The resplendent Tokyo skyline, bathed in sunshine, covered with cloud, and also hot, sticky and pretty humid out there as well. We are expecting rain to be a bit of a factor. Now, we saw that Maloney and Verne were under investigation at the end of the session. So Maloney on a fast lap here and Verne on a slow lap, cruising on the racing line. I mean, that's clear cut as you like, isn't it?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah. But, I mean, it looks like just a traffic jam, doesn't it, completely? I mean, that's, yeah. From my side, that is definitely. An
audible and visible frustration there for Zane Maloney as well. That's really disappointing. And the thing is, for Verne, his race engineer should have been on the blower, saying to him, look, fast driver approaching behind, move off the racing line. I know it's difficult through that first sector. It is really tight. It is really twisty. Thank Thank you very much indeed, Nicky. Right then, quarter-final one. Nick Cassidy versus Nico Müller. Cassidy hasn't won a duel since Berlin, but Müller was actually slightly quicker than Cassidy in Group A, if we can read anything into that. But of course, we now go from 300 to 350 kilowatts into all-wheel drive, and crucially, we only have one flying lap for each of the drivers in these sessions, so it is now or never time for them to progress forward. Now, the Porsche powertrains were quicker in practice this morning. He had 4 out of them inside of the top 5, and they were of course in 350 kilowatt running, so whether we can read anything into that or not, I'm not 100% sure. However, one thing to mention is, of course, it's much later in the afternoon now, 4:15 local time here in Tokyo. Track temperature has dropped by about 7 degrees from then. It's down to about, what, a brisk 41.
Yeah, it's so cool. Honestly, it's completely changed. The atmosphere out here is completely changed. It's going to make a little bit of a difference. All jokes aside, Tom, it's definitely going to play a factor. Looking at the one-lap performance from free practice 2, like you touched on earlier, Nico Müller definitely had the upper hand. Porsches looked strong in attack mode 350 kilowatts. So you would probably say the advantage lays with Nico Müller here, but Nick Cassidy, he can always pull a lap out of that.
Well, it's the 7th time we've seen Müller in the duels, but the only wins he has had this season is when he took pole in Miami. January, I think it was, a long time
So you're
ago.
saying if he makes it through this duel, then he's just going to go on and get pole position?
Well, I
It's a
mean,
slam dunk.
Hey, well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see if he can
Oh,
win.
don't sit on the fence now, Tom. You can't give us all the stats and then sit on the fence.
Get simply splinters. We'll wait and see. Let's wait and see what Nick Cassidy can do there as well, because of course his teammate Jonathan Verne is also going to be out later on in quarter-final 3 up against Eduardo Mortara. But this is now the crucial time, Katie, and of course we're in four-wheel drive now. We've only got 1 lap to build the heat into the tyres. So how do you think they're going to play this?
Well, it's just flat out, really. I mean, there's not much they can do in terms of strategy. It's taken that element away that you have for the group stages. Should I do another push? Should I do another pull? Here it is literally just pure speed and pure driving. It's actually my favourite part of a Formula E race weekend. I think when you see these cars go head to head and you slow down and we get the split screen of the driver view. Yeah, the cars look planted. I mean, he is absolutely on it round here. Great body language in the car, great response.
Yeah, that's Nick Cassidy. Let's see what Nico Müller's like through the first couple of corners as well. We'll get an idea of where the representative sector times should be for these drivers through sector 1 and into sector 2 later on in the lap. But Cassidy's car looks hooked up quite nicely here. The tyres cherubing in pain there. The advantage is with Nico Müller through sector 1 for the time being. It's 30 flat for Cassidy. It's the first sector time that we can see between those two drivers, but Müller about 2 to 3 tenths of a second actually, in fact, in front of him into the high 29s.
That's the fastest we've seen all weekend. I believe it was 29.9 from Mortara in free practice through the first sector. So Nico Müller really starting this lap strongly.
Down towards turn 15, we've seen so many drivers making mistakes in this final sector of the lap, including turn 16 as well, where we've seen a couple of them in the wall this weekend. Nico Müller, faster still in that second sector, rather, beg your pardon, up by another third, so 3 tenths of a second in his pocket. Makes his way through the final couple of corners, Nick Cassidy. Out of the last turn we go, and across the line. It's not been a bad lap time at all by any stretch of the imagination for the Kiwi. However, Müller's has been absolutely imperious. He's built it out to nearly half a second. Over the line we go, and he's easily out-qualified Nick Cassidy. Nico Müller progresses forward into the semi-finals. Job done so far for the Porsche team. Only one car, of course, in the dual stages, with championship leader Pascal Wehrlein out. So they're pinning their hopes on Müller getting himself into the fight for pole position and bagging those 3 points in the team's
If you're
championship.
Pascal Wehrlein, that's got to frustrate you, because the performance clearly over 1 lap with 350 kilowatts in that Porsche car is exceptional.
Let's see whether the Porsche performance is backed up here in quarter-final 2. Jake Dennis and Taylor Barnard, 2 Britons, going head-to-head. DS Penske have had a rough time of things this season, down in 9th in the team standings overall, and they would dearly love to get themselves right back on to a better performance. A couple of front rows we've seen from Taylor Barnard, 3 in fact this season, 1 in Mexico, 1 in Berlin, and 1 last time out actually in Shanghai. So we know the pace is there in qualifying. It's just been in the races where it's not really come together for the young British driver, but maybe this will be the exception to the rule this weekend. However, he's going up against Jake Dennis, who was the quickest man in sorry, I beg your pardon. He was pretty quick actually in practice earlier on today, but I think he was quickest in Group A.
He was fastest in Group A, but that lap time that he said quite comfortably a few minutes before the end of the session. So we're expecting the track ability to also come into play, maybe him to drop down to further 4th in the session, but he's still held on strong at the top of the timesheet. So the pace looks good in that Andretti. We've just seen what a Porsche powertrain car can do in the first quarter final there, ruled by Nico Müller. Let's see how Jake Dennis gets on then.
I-29s in the first sector is what we need to be keeping an eye out for between Barnard and Dennis. That's what we saw with Nico Müller a couple of moments ago. That's the reference, the benchmark between these two drivers. And first sector time for Taylor Barnard here, Katie, looking pretty handy, 29.7.
Yeah, I wouldn't count them out. We've seen their qualifying performance has been great this year. They've struggled a bit with efficiency during the races. But yeah, I mean, do you remember his performance last year in qualifying with the McLaren in his rookie season? It was phenomenal. I remember watching him. He just had a control in the car that everybody else was looking at and struggling to beat, but it was consistent. It was consistent across street circuits, and it was consistent across the purpose-built racetrack. So
Dennis responding here to Taylor Barnard's advantage. It's ebbing and flowing. Dennis was a fraction slower in sector 1, but he's built it back to an advantage now in sector 2. Just 7/100ths of a second in it between the two. So it's going to come down to the third and final sector, and who will get the best drive out of the last turn in particular as well. Over the line we go for Taylor Barnard, 1 minute 12.3. Dennis with a bit more in his pocket now, just over a tenth of a second as he comes out of the final turn. Is this going to be enough for Dennis to do it? I think it is, yes. 7/100ths of the advantage for the season 9 world champion. And for Roger Griffith, something for him to smile about as the rebuild continues on behind him for Felipe Drugojic's car. He sees Jake Dennis on the left-hand side of the garage doing enough to out-qualify his countryman and go through into the semi-finals up against Nico Müller.
Yeah, took strong laps there. It wasn't as fast as Nico Müller though, so Nico Müller, that lap time looks even more impressive now. We've seen a bit more fair running across the board with that second quarter-final. Taylor Barnard started the lap stronger, just faded towards the end there. I mean, it was a matter of hundredths of a second though, as we've got Mortara, who has been the man to beat this weekend, up now.
Yep, he's going head-to-head with Jean-Eric Vergne in quarter-final 3. Let's wait and see how this one is going to work out. Then we saw Nick Cassidy in the sister Citroen just being knocked out a few moments ago by Nico Müller. Will it be the same story here today? Fresh off the back of that phenomenal podium a couple of weeks ago in Shanghai. Got on to win the race as well, he reckons. Car was looking very compliant, very comfortable, but unfortunately the checkered flag fell before he had an opportunity to attack against Lucas Di Grassi. Either way, that was then, this is now, down towards turn 1. Tyres chirruping in pain there for the old hand of Jean-Eric Vergne as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2. We've now slowed these 2 laps down then here with Eduardo Mortara on the right-hand side of your screen. So, of course, in reality, Vergne is a little bit of a way up the road, but this gives us a real idea here, Katie, of just looking at the difference of these 2 cars, how they're behaving against one another.
yeah, for everyone watching at home, I think the best indication of the driver feeling confidence is on the steering. And if you look at how many times they're turning into the corner, ideally you want to be committed once, turning in once, and then pointing the direction you want to go. If you see a lot of movement and steering out, that means that they feel like they haven't got the rear of the car settled and they're trying to catch those moments.
Slightly slower actually by 10.5 of a second against Eduardo Mortara. Through that thread of an eye of a needle section of turns 10 and 11, Mortara looking really committed and that car looking very compliant and comfortable.
Yeah, he's been super strong in the middle part of the lap, particularly this weekend, Mortara, and he's definitely making use of that. It's another few hundredths of a second in his favour and only a very short middle sector there. And now we come into 16. Mortara has hit the wall here, so how much risk is he prepared to take? It looks neat and tidy from him. He's got that settled. He's managed to get to the apex at 70, the apex at 80. What's his acceleration like to the line now? 0.3 of a second of the advantage built up in that third sector, and now over 0.4 of a second as he out-qualifies Jean-Eric Vergne. So Eduardo Mortara does move forwards and into the semi-finals. Both Citroens out in the quarter-finals here in Tokyo, but Mortara back on form once again. He's had 3 pole positions so far this season. That's more than any other driver on the grid. Could it be a 4th on the cards here in Tokyo? We'll wait and see. That car looked absolutely brilliant in dual qualifying trim. Now, quarter-final 4, Dan Ticktum versus Antonio Felix Acosta. If there's a man who's handy when it comes to a dual and a street circuit, it's Dan Ticktum.
Also a man that loves Tokyo, loves his cars.
Yeah.
It's in his element over here, isn't he?
I think he'll be pretty gutted that Andretti have got the Liberty Walk collaboration this weekend, because that is very much a bit of Dan Ticktum. He loves drifting at any time, even in a Formula E car, he loves to be sideways.
Front row of the grid here last year for Dan Ticktum, to remind you as well. It was at the time his best ever qualifying in Formula E. Since then he's gone on to bag pole positions on a few different occasions. Out of the final turn comes the Briton then, and over the timing line to Costa. He's a little bit of a way down the road, and we'll see what Dak is going to be able to do. A reminder, of course, that Costa is yet to take a pole position in the Gen 3 era, just exiting his way out of the final turn. So Ticktum is going to be our first reference point then here, and high 29s is what we're expecting to see in that first sector. That's a really good indication of where we're at.
It's worth noting that both the Porsche powertrain cars that we've seen so far have both made it through, so this definitely feels like a circuit that in full 350 kilowatts attack mode, 4-wheel drive, these powertrains are excelling. Although Dan Ticktum's first sector sector doesn't look like the best we've seen this weekend.
Yeah, it's a 30 flat for Dan Tixon there, so it's about 0.3 of a second away from the ultimate pace. That might be enough though, depending on what DaCosta has got in response to him. DaCosta with 0.2 of a second in his pocket already though in sector 1, a 29.8 flat for the former world champion. No margin at all there, is there, for Tixon on the exit of 15?
This is where Dan Tixon can take some risks. Turn 16, I feel like this is where he won't be afraid of that part of the circuit, and he looked like he's navigated it pretty well. Had a little bit of a slide at the apex of 17 and across the line. Where has this put in lap time wise? A 1 minute 12.4, so that is a little way off what we've seen the drivers that have made it through so far put together, and DaCosta is just compounding that with a strong middle sector.
Yeah, building up that advantage as Antonio beats DaCosta. Let's see what he can do though. He's lost a bit of time though coming into sector 3. Don't think it's going to push him too much onto the bubble. I think he'll have enough in his pocket, and he does so over the line. He had 0.3 of a second in sector 2, dropped a couple of tenths of a second in sector 3, but nonetheless it was still enough. So that just goes to show how he could ebb and flow there, Casey. Those first couple of sectors crucial for DaCosta, because if he'd made that mistake and been closer to Tictum's time, then obviously he wouldn't have had that margin in his pocket.
Well, yeah, that just shows that you have to keep pushing all the way through the laps. You know, anything can happen. I mean, we've seen it before in the duels where I think one driver's spun and another driver's gone off, and the drivers that spun, was it in Monaco when they ended up still falling through?
Mate, you're right, yeah. This is a little replay of DaCosta. This is through the first part of the lap where he had a couple of attempts in his back pocket, and we've seen drivers get close to that wall on the entry to turn 4 there and actually almost run out of road and put themselves offline, but that looked neat and tidy from DaCosta, and I think Dan Tixon will be kicking himself there because the second and first sectors I think would have been right up there with the best. I think he lost 3 tenths to the best lap times we've seen just in that first part of the lap, so he'll be frustrated.
So here's how we got to the lineup in the semi-finals. Quarter-finals then with Cassidy, Muller, well, good to hear there from Nick Cassidy, trying to keep positive in the face of a lot of adversity this weekend for the Citroën team. Semi-final 1 though, Andretti and Jake Dennis, Porsche and Nico Muller going head-to-head then. Which of these two drivers is going to move forward and into the final, Billy Munger?
Well, I'm going to go with your stat, Tom, and I'm going to say Nico Muller, because he's made it through the quarter-final, he has to get to the final and win it now. But on being serious, I think he was probably the most impressive in the quarter-finals to be first one out and to deliver that time. Only 100 slower than Mortara, super tight.
The interesting thing is though here, because we're now in the semi-finals, obviously these drivers have all done a heat cycle with their tyres, so they've got to try and cool them down in theory as quickly as they possibly can to stop them overheating and get the maximum out of them. I think they might side the tyres, maybe change them over, do something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be looking at the data in real time, and whatever needs to be done will be done, but it's the same for everyone in a way. I know there is some advantage if you are out any further quarter-final than the others, but I think, you know, pretty much it's equal for everyone going into this, and it's just going to be about who lays the lap down and who has the position on turns like turn 16 where it really counts.
So out onto the track we go then. There is Florian Modlinger, team principal for Porsche. There is Roger Griffiths as well. Both Porsche powertrains out in this one as well. So whatever happens, Porsche will be, I imagine, relatively pleased. But they're not riding on this as well, because obviously whoever gets into the finals has an opportunity to bag those 3 points. Important for both teams. For Porsche to close the gap down from 6 to 3 points in the top of the team's championship, or for Andretti to increase their advantage over the Hitler from 2 points up to 5.
What do you think you're thinking if you were Pascal Wehrlein here, Casey? Do you think Nico Muller, you'd prefer him to be getting the pole position so he can dictate the pace of the race a bit?
For sure. I mean, I think as much frustration as it would be that you're not sat behind the wheel in that car, because you know it's got the performance to do it. I think that you know you're not going to want somebody that is potentially a rival for the championship still if it's to go Jake Dennis's way this weekend.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I think Alexa would set a stat just now that the championship actually can't be won this weekend now that it comes to without qualifying, so it's going to go down to wide and London, and that is going to be on his mind for sure. But any point he can take away from a potential rival is a good thing.
Well, great news if you're in London. Hope you'll be joining us there to decide the championship for season 12. The drivers now on their one and only flying laps. Dennis on the left and Muller on the right, so we slowed this one down. Of course, in reality, we know that Dennis is a little bit of a way up the road, but we'll wait and see what the first sector times are going to be. Mid to high, 29 is what we're expecting for these two drivers. A fair bit of understeer there, though, for Muller through turn 4.
Yeah, Nico Muller picked up a lot of understeer at turn 4 there where we have attack mode, and I think that's cost him a lot of lap time, to be honest. He got away from the apex, he then had to slow the car down to get it pointed in the right direction. There you go, 0.3 of a second, that one mistake, just picking up understeer in turn 4, that's cost him probably the chance to be in the final there.
Yeah, that's a disappointment there for Nico Muller. He was now hope for a mistake from Jack Dennis. We've seen them threading an iron needle through. Oh, he's in the wall! Oh, he's in the wall on the exit of turn 11, and that just goes to show how fine the margins are. The red flag comes out, the session will be suspended, and for Nico Müller, it's a disappointing end as he clatters the wall in big style on the outside of that chicane. And unfortunately for him, that's now a big repair job going into the E-Prix tonight as well.
That right there was frustration for the mistake down at turn 4, because that part of the lap time, if you try and find lap time there, the walls can punish you. And I think knowing he had time down compared to Jake Dennis, I think that was him searching for lap time in a place where you can be punished, and that's exactly what's happened.
Right, so the red flag is out, the session is suspended then, so Dennis's lap time is null and void basically. He will now progress forward automatically to the final. We'll lose Nico Müller because quite frankly you can't go around with 3 wheels on the car. We'll have to get another look at it because just as we were going through there, the camera froze up slightly on the onboard, and hopefully we'll get an external shot.
We need to recover the car.
Let's have a listen to Marek Hanachevsky.
The track. It might take a little bit longer than usual.
Yeah, so of course the problem is on the outside there. You've got a Tech Pro barrier, which is obviously going to have been deformed to absorb.
No way, man, no way!
To that one.
Are you okay? I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big shame there for Nico Müller as the car's now being recovered. We've got a telehandler down there at the Marshals.
I think what we're hearing again there on the radio is frustration, and it feels like he knows that he's searched for lap time in frustration for missing the apex in turn 4. He's obviously fighting as hard as he possibly can to make that lap time up.
Incidentally, by the way, you'll notice with the Porsche drivers this weekend that they're running white race suits. That's because of the heat here, trying to dissipate some of it. Let's have a look at what happened though to Müller then. So we're coming down into 10 and 11. Oh, he's late on the brakes, sliding on the way in. He's already out of control before he's gotten into that chicane. Problem is he then hits the wall on the outside or the inside of turn 11, and that sends him careering into the wall on the outside of the corner.
He tried to roll so much speed through the apex of 10 here. If you get a proper angle from the onboard here, you can see he's just braking there. He's trying to keep his speed in. The rear's gone so early on. Obviously, unfortunately, that onboard camera does freeze, but he effectively loses the rear, hits the apex at that left-hander through 11, and it sends him to the outside wall. So we thought there was 3 wheels on his wagon, but probably knowing the impact was on both sides, there might have only been 2, Tom.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And that is another repair job and a half for another Porsche-powered team, because obviously we saw Felipe Drugovich in the barrier. Let's hope that they don't need a spare tub.
I was just about to say, I think critically that's a big factor in the case.
Well, James was just saying here that he thinks that if they do, then they've actually not got time to change it now before the race anyway. So if they have a spare or not, we've seen the monumental work that Andretti are putting in, and they've had that extra time from free practice.
But that's the thing, is there must be 3 hours mandatory between qualifying and the E-Prix. So there's a decent amount of time, but it's not quite enough if you're going to be doing big repair jobs like that. And there's other questions as well, like the front powertrain is going to need to be replaced. Well, that gearbox, the back of the car as well, the rear powertrain, all of these different parts are going to have to be looked at. I suppose if nothing else, it's good time prep, isn't it, to try and clean them up?
Yeah, potentially, but again, I don't know how much of a difference it's really going to make. Like, will he want to put a full heat cycle through them? It's obviously him and the engineer will discuss that and make a decision.
Well, this is going to be a thriller then, as Jake Dennis makes his way out onto the track. All on his own, of course, no Nico Müller in this session, and a good chance for us to have a leisurely look at this Tokyo circuit with that lovely Liberty Walk livery. Keep an eye out for it under the floodlights actually later on here this afternoon in particular, because it is a stunning looking car, and even better under the lights here in Tokyo for the very first time.
Well, this is just a really important moment for Andretti, isn't it? Obviously, with what's happened this morning with his teammate, for Jake to get through to the duels and obviously automatically qualify through now. I think he would have done it on pace because he did have the advantage before Nico's crash, but it's never nice to go through that way. But yeah, nonetheless, this is something that the Andretti garage can smile about, because so far I think they've had a really tough day in the office.
Incidentally, Jake Dennis will hold the record, does indeed hold the record already for the most appearances in the dual final, 15 so far in his Formula E career, and that'll be increased up to 16 here today. Porsche powertrains have taken the last 6 pole positions in Formula E as well. That's, of course, after we saw a brilliant early season run actually from Mahindra and Eduardo Mortara, who will be out in the second of the semi-finals. We'll see himself and Antonio Felix Costa going head-to-head.
Just interested now, we've got these heady shots to see whether we see any actual tyre preparation going on while Jake Dennis is on this lap. Is he going to be doing any weaving to create tyre temperature to prep it for the final lap coming ahead? I haven't seen anything so far to indicate that. I think he's just cruising around, he's not doing too much.
Now, I think he's going to leave a fair bit of margin on the table. What were the times that we saw in the quarterfinals? 1 minute 12.3 or something along the lines of that. I mean, look, he's not exactly hanging about here, is he?
He's definitely not going to challenge that, though. Or is he going to do anything in preparation for the final?
Well, if nothing else, it gets his eye in, doesn't it, really, here for that final, and just gives him an idea as the track evolves over the last few minutes, whether it's sort of ebbs and flows. The track temperature actually cooled down a little bit. It's down to 40 degrees now, so it's about a degree cooler from when we started in qualifying. The first sector there, yes, about 3 seconds off the pace earlier on. But yeah, it just gets his eye in, just reminds him where all those reference points are, those braking points, crucially where to brake for that chicane.
Maybe he's a Harry Potter fan. He can check out the Quidditch sticks that you said about earlier, mate, eh?
Making his way through in towards the final sector then, turn 15. Love this part of the track in particular, because you just see it flying over, and then turn 16. Who doesn't love watching a Formula E car on board through here? It's that blind corner, it drops down, doesn't it?
It's got everything about it, hasn't it, turn 16?
Great. Through the final couple of corners. Out of it now, Jake Dennis over the line of formality, of course, we know who'll make it through into the final. He takes the checker flag with a 1:19.531 then, and will go through into the finals for the 16th time in his Formula E.
So we're thinking to go quite aggressive outlap, prepare your surface.
And that's the point as well for Da Costa and for Mortara. Obviously they've set the garage for 5-10 minutes longer than they were expecting to, so those tyres are going to cool down a bit, so needing to be a bit more aggressive, I guess, to get some surface temperature back into the tyres.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can expect to see some burnouts as well coming out of the pit lane once they're obviously out of that zone, to go try and get a bit more heat into the tyres. Relatively similar for both of them, but yeah, definitely will make a big difference.
It's always the balance of surface temperature versus the core temperature of the tyre, and I think that's where the drivers really can make a difference, is getting that balance right between cooking the surface of the tyre by a lot of weaving compared to using the braking to really stimulate that core temperature in the tyre.
So Da Costa and Mortara then heads ahead in the second of the semi-finals. Mortara's reached the semi-finals 6 times this season, but only has a 50% win percentage. Let's see what Costa can do. Yet to take a pole in the Gen 3 era of Formula E, just to remind you. He has qualified on the front row once this season, twice this season, I beg your pardon. No, just for the once actually, as a matter of fact, at Monaco. So let's see whether he can go one better than that and get those 3 points for Jaguar and help them in their team's title battle. Mortara just making his way through the first couple of corners. Mid to high 25s again, what we need to expect through that first sector. It's a 29.6 for Da Costa through sector 1. That's absolutely brilliant.
It's funny because I was going to say Mortara's been their favourite to me because he was 3/10 up in the quarter-final time of Da Costa here, but that is a flying time. Oh, Mortara's just done a 29.5.
I'll raise you. That's what Mortara said to that one. That's incredible first sectors from both of them. Now they get to the middle part of the lap. Da Costa's through the critical turn 10-11 chicane, so is Mortara unscathed. So both of them on strong laps here so far.
Yeah, this is looking really good for Eduardo Mortara. Can Da Costa catch it though in that second sector? Mortara still quick in sector 2. Not quite the same margin that he had over the Portuguese driver through the first sector, but nonetheless, 10th of a second or so in his pocket. Over the line we go for Da Costa. It's a 1:11.963. Here comes Eduardo Mortara though. One more corner remaining. He'll come out of it. He'll blast his way to the checkered flag. And is this going to be enough for Eduardo Mortara to out-qualify Da Costa? It is. He loses a bit further time in that third sector. Actually, Da Costa was slightly quicker than him, but nonetheless, again, those first 2 sectors.
How was that? Yes, mate. Just 700 to 100. That was close. Easy at the end, sorry. I thought it was a good enough lap. That's alright, for a free, mate, that's it. So you go down to the minimum, so you know, for 100% rule, down to 13. Keep your temperature in your tyres.
So is Evan there trying to suggest that he's left a bit of margin on the table? So he took it too easy at the end because he thought it was a good lap?
I actually think he was confused when he was saying it was so close. I think he was saying that you've just missed out by 700ths of a second. I think that he didn't actually think that he was through. So
Oh, really? I read it the same as Tom, actually. I thought the way he was, Mortara was saying there was that, I left too much margin. But, I mean, if he did leave margin, I think it was a matter of like 4. He's the fastest man of the weekend. That's continued into his lap time he did in the semi-final.
Just going through those final couple of corners then. There's Jake Dennis, there's Eduardo Mortara. Mortara, of course, with the quicker time at the end of that one, but Dennis, obviously, as we know, he backed off, didn't he, at the end of that one because he was just leaving a bit of margin.
Well, I'm wondering, because he finished the lap and I haven't seen any red... I wonder if this is a lap from earlier on in qualifying, maybe
lap.
the quarter-final lap. I was expecting it to be the semi-final, but still, he was quick in the quarter-finals, Jake. He's been strong, but I think Mortara's definitely got the upper hand, and I think if he puts it all together, he's the man to beat.
Yeah, Mortara was actually quicker by 0.2 of a second in the quarterfinals over Jake Dennis, and then, as you say, obviously difficult to get a read of things on the semi-finals. As you can see there, got to Google Gemini that Mortara is shedding a 10th of a second in turn 18, avoiding having closed a secure pole position. Well, we'll wait and see whether that proves to be the case then here. Just a few moments away from getting this one underway though.
Sector 1 was very good, so keep the temperatures must have been very good to start that lap.
2, 1, internationals rejoin.
Team radio there for Eduardo Mortara. He'll be going head-to-head in the finals against Jake Dennis in a couple of moments' time. It could swing either way in the team's championship going into this one. And very excited to see how this one is going to work out. Just a couple of minutes to go until we get this one underway.
Fascinating that tyre temperatures in that first sector seem to be the most critical factor for lap time. That's what we've heard drivers like Dan Tixham say that they didn't have, and how that cost him lap time. And then we've seen Mortara's engineer there explaining that his temperatures must have been perfect to deliver the first sector that he did. So it feels like a lot of lap time is dependent on where your temperatures are out here, which is interesting.
Certainly is. Well, the sun now beginning to set as it lists lazily over the sort of cloud-covered sky here in Tokyo. The fans have been waiting patiently all afternoon for action to begin in Tokyo, and here is a reminder of how we ended up with our lineup in the final. So Muller qualified Cassidy in quarterfinal 1, Dennis got the better of Barnard in QF2, then it was Mortara ahead of Verne in quarterfinal 3, Costa in front of Picton for quarterfinal 4. The upshot is in the semi-finals, Dennis and Mortara are your two drivers who will progress forwards. They'll be going head-to-head in the fight for pole position. Dennis chasing his third pole of the season, Mortara chasing his fourth, and an opportunity for both teams to make some ground in their respective championships. So, Andretti's Jake Dennis versus Mahindra's Eduardo Mortara. Fifth in the championship for Jake Dennis in the drivers' standing, sixth for Eduardo Mortara, 3 bonus points on offer. The pole sitter has won the last 2 out of 3 races this season, incidentally, as well. So that's a nice little statistic. Of course, to remind you, it's a pit boost race here tonight. Our first ever time under the floodlights, and crucially, we're expecting the weather to possibly play a part as well. So wait for the green light to come on at the end of pit lane then, as Jake Dennis is going to filter out on to a very hot and humid circuit here in Tokyo, followed by Eduardo Mortara. The momentum, as we see it here in the commentary box, with Eduardo Mortara. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to reflect the end result.
Yeah, this is the fascinating thing about the qualifying format we have in Formula E, is that you can be the man who delivered the lap times in practice in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, but it's a one-lap shootout. If you make a mistake on this final lap, all your hard work doesn't count for anything, and you won't get that pole position. And Eduardo Mortara will want those points. He's obviously had pole positions already this season, and he's been over one lap realistically, and really one of the fastest drivers, probably on average across the season. He's always
So then, let's see how this one is going to go down. A chance also for Dennis to leapfrog to Costa for 4th place in the driver's standings if he bags those 3 points for pole position. And I tell you what, for Liberty Walk, they'll be happy because they're getting a fair bit of TV time here this weekend, if nothing else. It's a stunning looking livery, and will it be lining up at the head of the field for the 36-lap E-Prix here tonight?
Yeah, it feels like they've done pretty well with their coverage of Liberty Walk, because they've had a car that's been getting the headlines because it obviously found the barrier and has had lots of repairs, but then on the other side of the garage, there's lap times that are being delivered at Andretti too. Right,
pressure's on then. Out of the final corner we go for Jake Dennis. It's now or never time as he chases his 3rd pole position of season 12, down towards the first corner. We know Mortara has been so quick this session though. He set a new track record of a 1:11.889 last time out in the semi-finals. Has he got enough though to do it again here in the finals?
Yeah, he's hitting all of his lines. He's super tight on the apex around turn 4, and he's using every inch of the track.
Yeah, we can see Mortara in the bottom right-hand corner. He looks neat and tidy through turn 4 as well, so I think there's no major lap times that have been thrown away. We've seen Dennis now come through the first sector at a 29.7. A couple attempts down what we saw Mortara do in the second semi-final, and it's the same again. Mortara 2 attempts in his back pocket for the first part of the lap.
Phenomenal from Eduardo Mortara in the first pass on the lap. It can be made made or broken though down into turns 10 and 11, which is where the Swiss driver is just coming into now as he's threading the Iron Needle through there, so close to the wall through turn 11, but just about makes it through. There was no margin left at all on the table. We all sort of pulled back from the monitor here in the commentary box watching that one. Dennis actually though quicker in the second sector. That gap has shrunk down from a couple of tenths of a second down to less than a tenth of a second. Dennis out of the final turn over the line, a 1:11.863, so he's under lap record pace now. Can Mortara respond? Has he got enough left in his pocket? Through the final corner we go. Out of it now as he aims to the timing line. Is it going to be pole for Mortara or Dennis? It's James Dennis on pole position by 5/100ths of a second. The Andretti team are absolutely delighted with that. A pole for the British driver in season 12 as well. And the pressure was on his shoulders. The momentum was with Mortara, but ultimately Dennis was able to respond.
What a final sector from Jake Dennis. That was one of the best we've seen all weekend. He delivered at the end of the lap when it mattered. Well, on the other side, Eduardo Mortara lost nearly a quarter of a second in the final part of the lap. So I'm wondering if it was a mistake on his side, but you can see the frustration there. Frederic Bertrand he's frustrated because he knows that all weekend Mortara has been the man to beat. And we said it before the final, it doesn't matter what you've done up until that point. If you want pole position, you have to deliver over that one lap. And it was all going so well for Eduardo Mortara until the final part of that.
Yeah, for Dennis also, he now moves up to 4th place in the driver's standings, leapfrogging ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa, and what a fantastic final sector, as you say, in particular of that lap there for Jake Dennis. Sector 2 was where he built back an advantage, and he just carried that momentum through into sector 3.
And we talked coming into this weekend about the momentum.
Go on, son! That's how it's done, boys! Woo! Pole in Tokyo, yes! Oh, I don't know how we've done that, boys.
I don't think I've ever seen Roger Griffiths happier than that. I mean, we know how emotional he is and we know how big his smile gets when his drivers do well, but I think that has topped all charts for his happiness levels this weekend.
Speaking of that, look at him, he's bounding around the garage.
I think I have seen him happy, certainly when he found out there was an open bar.
Run up. No, 500s, mate, 500s. I lost it in 15.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Turn 15 is a long run down into the next corner. If you make a mistake through there, you're carrying that all the way down to the next braking zone.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was on entry, whether he locked up because it's quite bumpy in the braking zone there, or whether like, he had a bit of a slide on the exit. Like you say, that is a long straight. And Jake Dennis, I mean, funny seeing the images of him celebrating there, because I think it was probably even more ecstatic than that in the cockpit from the way he sounded. What a job he's done for Andretti. I mean, we talked about coming into this weekend, momentum, the championship campaign can be won or lost this weekend. It's really critical going into London. Not only has he now moved himself up in the standings to 4th, but his other championship rivals have not had strong qualifying results at a track where it might be tricky to overtake. This could be a real step in the right direction for him today.
Yeah, big news also for Porsche in the Manufacturers' Championship as well. That's really, really important for their points tally come the end of the season. So it's pole position number 3 of season 12 for Jake Dennis then. For Mahindra, it'll be a front row start once more for M1 and Mortara. Crucially though, those 3 points are just a bridge too far. Half a tenth of a second was what separated those two once all was said and done. And you can just see the delight turning into disappointment in slow motion there for Fred Bertrand. For Jeremy Calanson is just to his right as we look at it. And well, it's funny how the emotions can change on a sixpence in Formula E, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Mortara
3 more points, mate, well done. Awesome work, really well done. You pulled it back in 16-17, so you found it there, mate.
Now in the drivers' standings, jumping up ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa, which will mean that his deficit will be 29 points here, with 4 races left to go this season. Let's go down to catch up with Jake Dennis, though. Pole position.
Pole sitter for the TDK Tokyo. Dennis, congratulations. Simple question. How were you able to make up so much time on the last lap?
I've been weak there in all of the duels, and then I knew I messed up sector 1 against Edo, and I was just like, okay, I need to give it everything here. And yeah, full risk, and it paid off. You know, sector 3 was strong. And yeah, what a carve I've had from FP1, and yeah, another pole position, and yeah, super happy with that.
There's a lot on the line tonight. How risky will you be going forward?
I think the biggest thing is going to be the weather. If it stays off dry, then I think we've got a real chance of winning the race. If it's wet, then obviously it's going to be a bit of a lottery. But visibility is going to be key. We're on the front row. It's Tokyo E-Prix. We've got a Liberty Walk car this weekend as well, and there's no better looking car than that one. So yeah, buzzed for the race.
It was a beautiful livery, a beautiful lap. Congratulations, Jake Dennis. And now to present the Julius Baer Pole Position Award, please welcome host Shui Wei, Market Head, Southeast Asia, Bank Julius Baer. And he certainly has been fast all weekend long. That's Edo Mortara. He's going to start second ahead of tonight's TDK Tokyo E-Prix. Take me through that last lap.
Got beaten on this final duo. Yeah, I was giving my very best. Unfortunately, we started to have the tires overheating, especially in the last part. Yeah, and turn 15 wasn't the best. I could not really manage to slow down the car the way I wanted. Unfortunately, I think that we lost actually quite a bit of time. Nevertheless, congrats to Jake. He did a really good job. I thought that we had the upper hand on him before that one. I knew that I had to give everything, but unfortunately, with a small mistake against a strong driver like him and a strong team like me, this didn't go through.
You've been dueling all day today already, but tonight is when it really counts. How aggressive are you going to be on the start to try to get that spot? But really, you have to be meticulous through the whole race.
Don't know how the race will be. Definitely, I think starting from the first positions will be something very positive. Yeah, and I guess that we'll try to find out where we can finish. For us, scoring points, yeah, inside the top 5 would be great. And let's see how it goes.
Great job, Edo. Thank you.
You.